MusicMaster, and we want to welcome you to another one of our Wednesday webinars. Today, Drew Bennett, music scheduling consultant extraordinaire, is going to do a presentation on library maintenance. If you can only capture or if you can only watch a portion of this, this will be posted later on our website under webinars so that you could review it at a later date or share it with other people if you want to. And so by all means, we hope you enjoy the presentation. If you have questions along the way, you can certainly submit those and we'll try to answer them, or email any one of us after the fact if you've got specific issues that you'd like to address with your music scheduling consultant. So to get right into it, we'll turn it over to Drew Bennett on library maintenance.
Thanks very much, Mark, and thanks for joining me today for today's webinar. Yeah, we're going to focus on library maintenance and some advanced sections and tips so that you can get the most out of it and I think save yourself some time on data entry for one. But also searching out some records in the database and some general but less looked at library maintenance features. Like Mark said, if you have questions, you can type those into the GoToMeeting panel you have open on your screen, and one of our music scheduling consultants will get that answered for you. During the webinar, keep in mind that some of the things I'm going to be doing will employ basics of library maintenance. And because this is an in-depth look at other features, I may not cover basic functions as I'm doing them, or tasks like clicking on a category to see music, or anything that might fall under the basics of library maintenance. But I'm going to try my best to go slow so that you'll see what I'm doing to do some of those basic things. And if you have questions about those or the more advanced features that I'm going to show you, go ahead and either email your music scheduling consultant or just ask away here inside the webinar today. So with library maintenance, the way I like to get into my library anyway is really through the info bar and the different sections of it with categories and queries and song lists. Double-clicking on the category is going to bring it up for you. And what I wanted to show you today are some stuff in the toolbar that we don't get to look at very often. One of the first things I want to show you is a new icon, well, new to some of the later versions of 4.0, which is the favorite query. And that's this icon here, the black binocular icon with the heart over it. So you can assign a favorite query by clicking this arrow here. And if you've got a query that you've saved inside MusicMaster, that's going to be listed. And so you can go and choose that. And so I've got one. I've got a query that's the entire library sorted by category and then artist and title. So if I choose this icon here, then it's going to show my entire library, and it sorts it out by category first, and then I get all of my artists in nice neat alphabetical rows, and then also my title is in alphabetical order too. So that's favorite queries, and we're going to get into a lot of advanced queries later on in the session today, but I wanted to show you that that's where that is, and it's sort of a new icon. One of the things that's going to save you time when you are creating new records is autofill, because or autocomplete rather. Autocomplete is going to go through and complete or attempt to complete some of the fields that you're typing into, for instance, artist. Let me go down and delete this record that I've got here because we're going to use that. So there's two things that you need to keep in mind when you're talking about autocomplete. The first thing that you have to do is go tell the specific field that it's allowed to use autocomplete. All right? Otherwise, you can't use it. So the way to do that is to go to Dataset, Library, and Fields. Dataset, Library, and Fields there. And that's going to bring up the database field editor. And this is where you can come and look at some of the fields and determine if you want to use autocomplete. I think text fields like artist and even artist keywords are appropriate to use for autocomplete. Maybe album and some of the other things. So determine which ones you want to use for autocomplete, and then go and search out the field in this list. So I've got artist here, and you'll see on the right-hand side that I've got autocomplete. Okay. If this was set to no, then I wouldn't use autocomplete on this field. But in this case, I've set that to yes there. And I've done the same thing for artist keywords too. I've got that set to yes too. You see that? All right. So once you're done setting those and saying, yes, these fields can be used with autocomplete, then hit OK. The next thing that you need to be aware of is this button here at the top in the taskbar. So this is the Use Autocomplete button. And if it's not pressed in, then autocomplete is basically turned off for these fields that you've said, can autocomplete. So you always want to make sure that if you're going to be using this, that it's pressed in. So you'll see it's a little bit different of a color there, and looks like it's pressed in. So I'm going to go and add a new song here, and we'll go ahead and add it to B. And so as I type that in, you'll see that it auto-completes, and it's going to do the same thing for keywords too. So that'll save you a little bit of time. You only have to type in just a little bit of the artist's name, and you'll get that to complete automatically for you, and just a little bit, of time saved with data entry. So that's autocomplete. The other thing that we can do is fill in some of the other fields that we've got by running what's called autofill, which is different than autocomplete. So take a look. I've got roll and sound, and for Coldplay, which is the example here, it's always going to be a male record for me in my database, always. And even sounds, in most instances, it's going to be the same sound code, right? All of their music pretty much sounds the same. So I can use autofill to fill in some of these attributes and other things inside the database. Just depends on what I want to do to save myself some time. And that's this icon right here, autofill functions. When you click on that, you're going to get this song autofill screen. And this is where you can create these profiles of what to match and what to fill, because you're going to be matching a field, and then anything that matches with that field is going to fill in the rest for us. I'll show you what I mean. I want to match on artist, okay? So anytime I have a Coldplay record and I run autofill, then I want my roll and sound to also go and fill in, so I just don't have to do it. It's, a waste of time if I can use this autofill, right? So I'm going to go in and put artist in here. And so my field to match is the artist field. And you can use artist keyword if you'd like to, or whatever you want to use. But in this example, we're going to use artist and match off of that. Now the fields that I want to copy, and that means that if I match a record, go and copy what I've already got in these other records in the database and just put it into this one that I'm creating. Then I can go down and find those fields. So I want role for this instance, or gender in some databases. And I think I'll put sound in there too. Okay, so I've got artist here for the field to match, and then the fields that I want copied are role and sound. So on the right-hand side, I can tell MusicMaster what categories I want this to be performed in. And I've just unchecked some non-music categories and my uncategorized song list. I don't really care about that kind of stuff right now. I really only want to concentrate on what's getting rotated. And so you just uncheck those or check them off and make sure that you've got the categories that you want to see this performed in. All right? When you're done and you've got this all set up, you can go ahead and save it. And you can save the function. And you can have as many of them as you want. You can have several of these. Now, I've already created one here called fill, sound, and roll. So I don't need to save this. And I can actually close this if I want. Or I could run it. So I'm going to close this and show you that certainly I could go back here and I could choose my profile, my fill, sound, and roll profile inside autofill, and I can choose run, and it'll go ahead and run that. There's a couple of other places that you can run this. We'll come to the context menu here and look at Autofill and just let you know where that is in just a minute. But it is in that menu. When you right-click on the blue pointer arrow, that's all I did was right-click and went down to Autofill. But I think the easiest way to do it is just to hit F8 on your keyboard. That's the function key that's going to fill in and run that autofill for you. So you see how I just put in M for male and N for whatever N happens to be as far as my sound code in this database goes. So that's pretty quick, because if I add a catalog of music, or even if I add a bunch of stuff, if I added a Metallica record along with this Coldplay record, and I had a day where I added 3 or 4 different kinds of artists, I can still use that autofill, and it's going to go match that artist, and it's going to go fill in that information for me, so I don't have to do it. And it's just one keystroke, F8. So if you go and you set that up, you can have several profiles and several ways of doing it, and then when you hit F8, you're going to run that, and it's going to fill in all that information for you. It's really going to save you some time when you're coding these songs. You can either, you can even have an intern go in and say, look, type in these songs and then hit F8 for me. All right, and that's basically like them, going in and adding the record and coding it for you. So let's go back to a category here and talk about another menu that you'll see when you're right-clicking inside library maintenance. If I right-click here, just anywhere inside, this song for the Beastie Boys, then I'm going to see this menu here. And certainly there's several, basic things, like I think copying a song is pretty basic, or deleting the record, printing it, and things like that. And there's a couple of other things that we'll look at, like mass changer and things like that. But find matching values is pretty cool. And when you right-click and you choose find matching values, depending upon what you have in your tools options, and we'll talk about that in just a second, it's going to go and find all of the Beastie Boys, in this example, all the Beastie Boys records in my database. And it's going to bring it up for me, so I can see all of these at once. And if I was doing some sort of maybe a themed weekend, or maybe a weekend where the Beastie Boys were coming to town and I wanted to play a Beastie Boys song at the beginning of every hour, whatever I wanted to do, I can use this find matching values and bring up all of them in front of me at one time. And I can do something pretty neat with it. I can make a saved list. And so I can just choose Save List here, and it even gives me a title. It says Artist equals Beastie Boys, and we can call that our saved list. And when I hit OK, then it automatically saves that in the left-hand side. This is where it exists. You see my cursor there, in the Song List button on the left-hand side in the info bar. So that's a pretty neat way of going in and creating a really quick song list. You can use that for a themed field, where you go in and just right-click on a specific theme and say, hey, go find all the matching values for this theme, and let me make a quick song list out of it. A lot easier than going into the song list editor and going and searching for that and moving all the songs over and all that kind of stuff, right? So that's a quick way of making these song lists. You can also change the design in here if you'd like to. It looks a lot like editing the grid layout. I just chose that design button, and then it brought this edit grid layout screen up. And I already had roll in here, but if I wanted to take that out and maybe take a look at some of the sound codes that I've got in this data, then I could go down and find sound and either move that over with these arrows, or I can, drag and drop too, just like you can when you're changing a layout for library maintenance. When I hit OK, then that changes, and I can take a look at some of the information here. But that's finding matching values and changing the song lookup design and making a quick song list out of that. I think that's pretty handy. So auto move is a feature that you may or may not know about. It allows you to automatically move songs after something has happened. Maybe a date has gone by, or maybe it's played enough times in a category, and you know where it's going to go. You know where you want to put that. Maybe you want to rest it. Maybe you want to take it out of rotation. Maybe you want to move it from an A or a B after it's had a certain number of spins. We see that a lot. when people use auto move. And you can, for instance, if I'm on the Beastie Boys here, I think the easiest way for me is to right-click and choose Move down here in this context menu. And I can edit auto moves for the current song. I can add an auto move to some selected songs, or you can remove them from here too. So let's go and edit this move, and you'll see that it says Song, Time to Get Ill. So I know this is just the one song I'm working on because I just right-clicked on the blue pointer arrow, and I chose Move, and then I chose to, edit the move. So you'll always know if you're dealing with a specific song because it'll tell you right here. And so to create an auto move, I'm just going to choose Add. I know the record's had 375 plays. And I can say, you know what, I want to move this to a B either on July 31st or after it's had 400 spins. So if it gets to 400 spins before July 31st, move it. But if it hasn't, go ahead and move that on July 31st. Really like to see that, go into that category. You can return it to the original category if you want to on a specific date or after a certain amount of category plays inside B. Or you can set these two dates here and choose to repeat that move yearly if you'd like to. So those are the settings that you have to work with inside Auto Move. Once you hit OK, you'll see that it'll give you the information on when that's going to happen and what's going to happen with it. You can come in here too and choose to delete this if you'd like, and that'll go away. So I'm going to hit cancel here and show you that if you wanted to do this for several songs, if I wanted to do this for 6 or 7 songs, then I'm going to hold my shift key down and I'm going to continue to hold that down. And then I'm going to go and click into the blue pointer arrow field for the last song that I want to include into the auto move. All right? Then you can right click and make changes to all of these songs at once with Move. And then I can add an auto move to all the selected songs. And you'll see it looks a little different here. It's not giving me that specific title because we're dealing with all of these songs. Then I can make those changes and apply an auto move to all of those songs at once. So that's creating an auto move for some of the songs in your library. Next thing we want to look at is just a real quick location for playing audio. I'm not going to show you how to set up audio or play it because I know that we've covered that in another webinar with Aaron Taylor. And man, he did a great job on taking you through some of the more gadget, bell and whistle kind of stuff inside MusicMaster. So go to mmwin.com when you get a chance if you haven't listened to his webinar and search that out and listen to some of the stuff that he talks about with setting up audio and some of the other stuff with web browsers inside MusicMaster and things like that. You did a fantastic job with it, and so I think you're going to get more out of that webinar. And we don't have a lot of time to cover everything. So, but I want to make sure that you know that you can hit F12 to play a song if you've got it set up inside MusicMaster to play audio. You can also, and since we're talking about library maintenance, and we're going to deal with this library menu here in just a second, you can go up to the top and choose Library and go down to Audio, and we've got this feature where you can go and verify the music and the audio inside MusicMaster. So you can go in and make sure that all of the songs that you've got in the database are also attached to a music file so that in the event you wanted to play that, you could. And you can come in here and verify all of that. And the report would say, out of the 3,000 songs that you've got, 2,599 are okay, and then the rest of them have some invalid file paths, and we want to go in and look at those. And then you can go in and look at those records and make any changes to some of the fields inside that song card so that you can connect properly the audio to the song. But library and audio and verify to do that. And you can also right-click here, and you've got some audio selections here in this context menu. When I right-click on the blue pointer arrow, you get that familiar menu, and you can go down and choose audio and then play the song or play all the selected songs that you've got or play everything that you've got in front of you. You can also rip audio from a CD, and Aaron covers that really well in his webinar too. So I'd really recommend that you go through if you want to learn how to set up audio and to use that inside library maintenance. Aaron's got your back on that webinar. The other thing that we can look at inside of library maintenance is the schedule recap. And I right-clicked here inside the song itself, and I'm going to go down to schedule recap, and it's going to load quite a bit of information for me because I scheduled a couple of weeks in advance for the webinar. But what it's going to do, and typically you're going to schedule just a couple of days, and so this information is going to come up quicker for you. It's loading everything that I've done over the last few weeks. But it's loading the thinking analysis right now, the thinking text file, and it's going to tell me how Sunday Bloody Sunday has been scheduling for me and what kind of rules it's been failing or passing and how it's been scheduling. So if maybe you know something about Sunday Bloody Sunday, you haven't heard it in a long time, you check the performance score in schedule order and you realize that it's having a hard time scheduling. You can come in here and look at the schedule recap for the last few days that you've scheduled and really see what's going on with the song. For instance, here I've got it, it's in a category A, we know that, which is a power, and on the 18th of June at 12 o'clock in the morning, it tried to schedule. And it was the 20th position of 27, which is my search depth. And it failed an unbreakable rule, which was the minimum rest of 7 hours and 45 minutes. And so I hope that you can see this text viewer. I know we've been having problems, or I've had an issue in past webinars where I haven't been able to look at that. So let me make sure that, that you get to see this real quick in just a second. Okay, so if you weren't able to see that text viewer, hopefully you can see that now. But yeah, let me go back over it if you didn't get to see that. This is the viewer, and this is what it's showing me. It's showing me how this song scheduled or didn't schedule in the last session that I had, which for me was the 18th through the 30th. So that was quite a big, session that I had scheduled. And so that's why it took a little bit to come up and why this file is so large. But basically what you're looking at here is the fact that it's scheduling, or tried to schedule rather, at 12 o'clock in the morning on June 18th. And it was testing position 20 of 27. And here's the title and the description. And it failed this rule. It failed minimum rest. And so it violated the absolute minimum rest and it got skipped. And if I look down into this text file, then it's going to tell me that every time it tried to come up, MusicMaster is really trying to schedule it, and it kept failing this minimum rest rule that I've got in my rule tree. All right, so that's scheduling recap, and it's something that you can look at for any of these songs, or selected songs if you'd like to. And you're just going to right-click here and choose scheduling recap at the bottom, and choose which function you want to use. And check the scheduling recap for those songs. So you don't have to go and run a report, or you can really just kind of come in and look and see what's happening with that song. So the next thing I want to talk about is this context menu. And I right-clicked on one of the field headers. So field headers are, are labels at the top of these fields: category, media, artist, that kind of thing. And if I right-click on artist, then I get this text menu, this context menu. And there's a couple things that we'll go over here. You can hide the column, you can edit the grid design, you can mask change something, which we'll look at here in just a second. But you can also arrange the list. And I find that this is something that not a lot of users know about or use, and it can be helpful. You can come in and certainly sort the field ascending if you wanted to, and that's just going to put everything in alphabetical order. I can do the same thing by just clicking on the artist or on the field name at the top, and that'll sort it for me. But you could also right-click and choose to arrange the list and sort field ascending, or you can sort by the song ID number if you'd like to. But I like sometimes coming in here and sorting by rest and saying, okay, well, what song's the most rested song? Ah, it's Jane's Addiction, Mountain Song. So I'd like to see that schedule the next time I automatically schedule a day. I've got REM down here. It's actually, 4 or 5 records back, 5 or 6 records back. If I right-click here and choose to arrange list, and I sort by the schedule order, REM's second. So maybe it's placed in the schedule order because it's up there close to the top. Maybe it's failed a couple of rules when it's tried to schedule as of late, and maybe that's why it's at the top. But that's why those two lists are different, because I was looking at the most rested songs, and then I was actually looking at the schedule order, which might have some other songs mixed in there that I've had a hard time scheduling. So that's using a range list to kind of take a look at some stuff. So a quick way to look at schedule order and song rest that way. I got a call earlier this week from a client of mine, and it's interesting because I think a lot of radio stations, or at least my experience has been that a lot of radio stations are changing automation systems. They're switching over, and it doesn't matter if it's from Scott Studios to Maestro, or from Maestro to Scott Studios, or whatever yours happens to be. It seems to me that a lot of radio stations right now and radio companies are changing automation systems. It's sort of bizarre. I've seen a definite rise in call volume on that subject lately. And we had an interesting conversation yesterday where we used Mass Changer to get some things done. And so my client basically had a numbering system that he wanted to keep a portion of, but he had something inside that field that he really needed to change. He needed to take the first 2 characters out of his media fields, and the first thing that he wanted to do was isolate the 4 numbers after that, after the first 2 characters. And then he wanted to copy that into another field so he could have that for reference maybe, and then he wanted to add a new prefix to his media number. So he wanted to go from MM to ZM. That's what he wanted to, or MM to DA. I can't recall what he wanted to put as the first 2 characters there, but it was something similar to that. And then he was going to send his library over to the automation system, and they were going to reference what he had done inside his database and set up his hard drive that way. So that when he got his hard drive back from the automation system, he already had his export design in for the new automation system, and he already had that mapped out and ready to go. And so the only thing that he needed was for the automation system to put the music in the right place, and then when he got the hard drive back, boom, he was up and ready to go. It was no time, and it was very little work on his end, which I think is the smart way to go. So we talked about how to remove these first 2 characters from this field, and it's an interesting thing with Mass Changer. So when you right-click here and choose Mass Changer, what I did was I right-clicked on the media field. I right-clicked on the name media. I didn't right-click anywhere in here because you can go to Mass Changer here, but you also get a different menu. I just right-click here and choose Mass Changer. So when this pops up, I want to make sure that my target field's correct, and it is with media, and my operation's going to change. There's several things that you can do with Mass Changer, and I know in past webinars we've talked about going through and playing around with this, making a backup of your data, playing around with Mass Changer to learn about it and save yourself some time in the future on some things that you will no doubtedly do or undoubtedly do. So when I choose the operation drop-down box, and you've got some different choices here. Replacing the specific value would go and search for something and replace it with something else. If you wanted to append to the field context, that's going to put the text that you define, that's going to put that at the end of the field. That's what append to field contents means. Prepend to field contents puts the new data that you've typed in to the beginning of that field, and we'll do that here in a second. Certainly you can assign specific values, and there's some more basic things that you can do in here, like converting the text to uppercase for fields like artist or artist keywords, or converting text to lowercase, and so on. But there's an interesting one in here called extract substring, and this is the one that we used this week to get the job done, and it saved him a lot of time. So, what he could have done, and I just hit cancel there, but what he could have done is, he could have not called me and gone through and deleted the MM out of there and done that for every single record in the database and spent a good amount of time that he didn't need to spend. But what he ended up doing was he called and we talked about how best to do it. And we went with the mask changer. So when this screen pops up, what we did is we went and chose extract substring. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to extract from here? What do we want to keep? What data do we want to keep? And what do we want to get rid of? And he said, well, I got to get rid of this MM. I really just want to keep these 4 numbers. I said, okay, so MusicMaster is asking us what position to start in. And since we want to keep these 4 numbers, then I want to start in position 1, 2, 3. I want to start in position 3 because that's where the first number is. So I put that into the start position field. And then how many characters do I want to go towards? Well, I want to go for 4 characters because I only have 4 numbers, and that's consistent throughout my field here. And so I want to go with just the 4 numbers, so for 4 characters. And now that's set up the way I want it. When I choose begin, MusicMaster is going to say, hey, we're going to take this MM out and just leave the 4 numbers. Is that okay? Yes, it is. So when I hit yes to all, then it goes and changes those 27 records in the data, or in this category. Then he wanted to go ahead and copy this, and that's more of a basic thing. I can start here at the top and click into the first media number, and then I can hold my shift key down. I'm glad we're going over it, actually, because this is what a common phone call we get. I'm holding the shift key down, and I'm clicking into the last song, the media field for the last song. And you'll know you've done it right because you've got that blue column there. And then you just choose Edit and Copy. And copy that. And then I can go to another field that a text field maybe, that I don't use, don't have data in, and I can paste that into there. So I can save these 4 numbers without anything in front of them and have that for reference if I need it. But the next thing that he wanted to do was he wanted to put the DA in front of these numbers. And that's really easy. We just right-clicked and we chose Mask Changer again. And instead of search and replace, which is typically the default, we went and chose to prepend to field contents. All right, so that means that we're going to add this DA in front of all of these other numbers. So you just type in DA into additional text and you hit begin. And then you can choose yes to all and boom. So quick way of changing those numbers, right? And then he just sent that off to the automation system and they plugged all of that in to his hard drive on their end, saved himself a lot of time. He could have gotten the hard drive from the automation system and found out what numbers they went with and then typed all of that in. So you can certainly talk to your automation system about how they like working that when you're signing on or when you're changing automation systems. But that's the route that he went, and I think he saved himself hours of time by using the mask changer to get the job done. Quickly, I want to go through the library menu here at the top. It's interesting. I'm going to close the window here, and you'll see that that goes away. You don't have that menu. You're only going to get that when you're in library maintenance, and there it magically shows up. So, I just want to show you where this is because it's at the top, and because it doesn't show up until you're in library maintenance, you might have missed it. And it has some basic things in there for you. You can add a new song, you can delete songs, you can day part records, you can check the move history. We went over auto, move, and audio, and we'll go over some of these other things here in just a little bit. But you can go to keywords or attributes and categories and fields and things. And so the library menu is up here at the top, and it's got some basic things that you'll be familiar with already. But if you didn't know where that menu was, that's where it is, and I just wanted to point it out. Tools and options is something that if you haven't explored very much, go in there and look at it when you've got some time, because there's a lot that you can do inside of tools and options to change the behavior of the database or to make it work a little bit differently for you. And library maintenance has a section in there that you can go and look at. So the library editor options is where I want to show you here. So you just go to Tools and Options, and when this opens up, then you'll go and highlight Library Editor Options. And there's a couple things that you can look at. We can show the category groups on top, for instance. Category groups, if you're not familiar with them, are these double note icons over here that will pull up multiple categories at once. You can create new category groups if you want to. We covered that in Library Maintenance Basics, and they'll be listed here too. When we do a conversion, we add a category group called Rotated Music that just has music that's rotated. But as a default, it's entire library, music categories, and non-music categories. And some people like to see that above their categories. That's all. They just like to see it above their actual categories. And so you can go into Tools and Options and highlight Library Editor Options, and then check or uncheck Show Category Groups on top. All right? And that will just move those to the top. Additionally, though, for query options, you can load your favorite query by default when you launch library maintenance from the icon in the navigation toolbar. So if you want to load your favorite query, then you can come into Tools and Options and set that to happen. And, you know, we talked about find matching values earlier and how you can create those great song lists on the fly with it. There's also ways that you can use find matching values to tell MusicMaster where you want it to search when you perform that. When I right-clicked on the Beastie Boys, it went and looked at everything in the library, including my uncategorized, or not including my uncategorized songs, though. But I could go and change that and say, you know, when I do one of those find matching value tasks, when I right-click and choose find matching values, you know, go through the entire library, but also include everything that's in the uncategorized song list too, because I'd like to see all the Beastie Boys that might be available in there. And this is where you can change that. Or you could say, you know, use the category list from the active query, or you could say, you know, go and look at the specific category list. When I do the finding matching values thing, I just want to look at the A's and B's. I don't really care about the rest of the data, right? So you can go and tell it what specific categories you want to look inside. There's also a drop-down box here, you know, where you can say, yeah, go and choose all the music categories and search there. But I like having it in all categories that doesn't include uncategorized songs. There's also a drop-down box up here at the top, and we can talk about a couple of these functions while we're looking at this. The current field query is Control Q, and I'll show you how it works in just a second. But current field query is just going to go and look at the current field, and it's going to say, okay, well, let's go look in the artist field for something specific, and I would type that in. And then current field value query is Control R, and that's going to already fill in that value. So if I Control R on a song, and I was clicking on the artist field, it would say, oh, well, let's go look for this artist somewhere in the database. Similar to finding matching values, but Control R is what that is. And so, you know, it's the same thing as the changes that we were making in find matching values. I can come and say, when I do a current field query, when I choose Control Q, only go and look at these categories, or only look at all categories that don't include the uncategorized song list. So Control Q and Control R. So you can also make that change inside of Tools and Options. And let me just show you real quick what that does. I've clicked into the Beastie Boys record here for the artist field, and if I hit Control Q, then it's going to pop up my library query and say, yeah, let's go look at an artist. I get what you mean. You were clicking into the artist field and you hit Control Q. Let's go and look for something specific in artist. And then I could type in, you know, whatever I want. But if I hit Control R, then it's going to pull up the library query, and it's going to say, oh yeah, well, let's go look at all of the REM records because you hit Control R, and I know that you were clicked on REM when you did that, so let's go and look at all of the REM records. It's real similar, I think, to find matching values, just right-clicking and choosing find matching values, only it doesn't bring it up in the song lookup box, it brings it up inside library maintenance. So that's the difference. But those are some of the things that you can use when you are dealing with library editor options or library search options, and that's inside tools and options there. So queries can really help you out when you are searching through the database or when you are scheduling a song inside the schedule editor. You can do some pretty neat things with it. I'm going to show you some advanced query creations today. We're going to create some advanced queries that you might find helpful, and I'll show you how to do a basic one too. When you have queries and when you save them, first of all, queries are just, we talked about it earlier. If I hit the black binocular icon, or if I hit my favorite icon up here, this is what the query looks like, and this is what it's going to look like anytime you search the database with a query inside MusicMaster. When you save queries, they're saved in the info bar on the left-hand side, and you'll see that I've got that query, which I have saved as my favorite query, and that's that query that's just sorting everything by category, artist, and title. When I double-click on that, like I just did, it runs the query for me. All right, and I can have as many as I want. So a basic query might be something like, we're just going to come here and hit this binocular icon, but you could certainly double-click on New Query and get the same thing done. A basic query might be just searching for a specific artist like we were going to do. So I would start with the first drop-down box and go down to artist, and I've got several things that I could search, or several types of search. While I'm talking about it, one of my favorite searches to do in a database that I'm not familiar with is the isBlank type here. Because if I could go in and say, well, find me all of the records in the database that have blank artist names, because we certainly don't want that. And so it'll go through the database and find out all of the songs that don't have any artist name in the field, or any other thing like intro or runtime is a good one to search for. And so isBlank, I think, is pretty handy. In this case, we're just going to do a basic one, and I want it to contain something specific, and we'll just search for the Beastie Boys. And then I can hit OK, and then MusicMaster is going to go find all the Beastie Boys records for me. So that's just a basic query. If I wanted to save that, though, then I could come back here and let my query box pop up and just save this and just say, well, here's my Beastie Boys search that I love so much, and save that. But let's look at some prompted queries. That's what I really want to talk about. I think they're really neat. Basically, the variable is set by you when you do the search through a prompt box. I'll explain it. Let's create a prompted query that either goes and finds the artist or the title or both, all right, when I type it in. I can go down and choose artists, and I want that contains, but here's the difference. I'm going to type in the @ and PROMPT, @prompt. Then I need to give it a label, okay? And I'm going to do that in parentheses. It always has to be in parentheses. And I'm going to call it artist name. That'll be my label, okay? It doesn't have to be the same thing as the field that I'm looking in. It can be whatever I want to call it. I can put an exclamation point next to it if I want. And then I'll choose @, all right? Then I'm going to do the same thing again, and I'm going to go down and choose title. And we'll do @prompt for title too. Okay? And I know that the categories that I'm going to search in are just these categories here. And at the bottom, I'd like to sort by category, artist, and title. Those are the sort keys that I've chosen down there, so that's going to sort for me too. And then I can hit save. I always like to call this prompted, so I'll know it is a prompted query, because some of my queries aren't prompted, like the sort by category, artist, and title. So prompted query, artist, title, and then save. And so you'll see that it's saved over here. I hit cancel there. You'll see that it's saved over here in my query section. And I can double click on it, and this is what it looks like. So I can just double click on that and type in whatever I feel like typing in at the time. artist name can be Beastie Boys or whatever I want it to be, and then it'll just go through and find those. Or if I wanted to type in, find me all the songs in my database that have the word alive in them, then it'll go through and find all of the titles that have alive in the title. So those prompted queries are kind of neat because you can create all these different kinds and then use them whenever you want to, and they've got that little variable that you can go in and just type in whatever you're looking for at the time. So that's cool. I mean, we can go in and look at the artist and title, but there's an even neater way, I think, to use prompted queries. And what I'm going to show you is a prompted query for Runtime. And so I'm going to choose New Query here. I'll let that come up. And this time, I want to deal with the Runtime field. And I'll show you why. So I'm going to go down here and choose Runtime. And I want my runtime to be less than or equal to, in this case. So I'll type in @prompt, and then I'll do less than or equal to. That's my label. That's in those parentheses. I'll choose add. I want to do another one too. I want to do runtime again. So I'm just choosing this drop-down box and going and choosing that. And this time I want greater than or equal to. And I'll type in @prompt greater than or equal to. And it has to must match all here. All right, and then I can save this, and I'll call this a prompted query for runtime. So because in my database, I've got clocks that only amount to, I've got clocks that only amount to about 53, 55 minutes worth of music every time I go and schedule that. So I like using this prompted query inside the schedule editor because I can go say, oh, you know what, I've got 53 minutes of music here. I need about 6 more minutes, 7 more minutes worth of music. So I'm going to double click right here and show you how this works. I can go in and say, go in and find me a record that is less than or equal to 3:30, but greater than or equal to 3 minutes. And then MusicMaster goes in and finds all of those records for me and says, okay, well, in the database, these are all the records that, are either greater than 3 minutes or less than 3:30. And I can, kind of come up with a spectrum of time in my prompted query, and then I can go into my schedule editor and say, oh, I'm a couple minutes off on this hour. Let me go in and search all the records that I've got that fall into this runtime, and I'm just going to use the variable. Maybe I need a 3-minute and 27-second song. Maybe I've got enough inventory that I feel like I could actually search and find that. So you can use that prompted query and really come up with some cool songs, or perfect songs rather, at the end of the hour that you can use. So that's a prompted query for runtime. And so I just wanted to show you that you can use any fields that you want and make it a prompted query, and then type in the value when you're actually doing the search. I don't have time to show you the other prompted query that I wanted to show you today, which was basically just a prompted query for the sound code, where I could go in and type in a specific sound code and bring up all of the records that had that sound code in it. We don't have time to do it today, but it's very similar to the runtime prompt and the artist title prompted query that I showed you. Okay, and if you have any questions on how to set those up, then you can call your MSC and get that done. The next thing I want to show you is song list editing. In fact, I've got a song list in here for the Beastie Boys that we created. And if I want to go and manipulate that song list, I'm not going to double click on it here because that's just going to bring it up into library maintenance, and I can see what's in the song list and how it's arranged. All right. If I want to really mess with it and optimize it or make some changes, I'm going to go to Dataset, Library, Song List Editor, and I'm going to bring that list up. So I could choose to load the list and find my Beastie Boys list and hit OK and load that up, or I could go in here and create a new list. We'll just put all the A's in here, or all of the entire library in here for now. And I just wanted to show you a couple things because I know in a couple of the other webinars we've dealt a lot with song list editing and some of the basic things like saving the list and naming it or adding a song to it. But there's a couple of things that I wanted to just briefly go over, and one of those is this icon here. It's called Shuffle or Sort the Songs in this list. And so when you're creating these new lists, and maybe it's a countdown show, or maybe it's a weekend show that you're going to do, where you're going to play a specific themed song at the beginning of the hour, every hour, whatever it is, it's nice to go in here and optimize the list before you go and schedule it. And so that's where this comes into play. And you can go down to the song list arrangement screen, and there's a couple that, go in here and look at these because you can fully shuffle, you can shuffle % back, you can even shuffle segments and distribute marked songs. The two things that I like to do in here is sort by field, or rather optimize by field, which allows me to go and just kind of disperse records based upon their field. And if I optimized by artist, what that does is it goes and puts U2, for instance, as far away from U2 as it can throughout the list. All right, it gives me a little bit of artist separation there. But the other thing that I like to do too is go back to this icon, and I also like to sort by rest. And you can tell it to sort relative to whatever date you have scheduled. And that'll go and put the most rested song at the top too of this list. Okay, so that's a couple of ways to optimize a song list when you're in here. You can also export this song list. If you've got an output design, you can export the list to a text file. That's pretty basic. But one of the cool newer things inside MusicMaster is that you can go and export this song list to another database. You can take this song list and say, yeah, I'll take this song list and export it, and then I'm going to go to another database that I've got and import it. Now, keep in mind that we like to have some commonality between the two databases, and it'd be nice if the automation numbers were the same. Okay, maybe you've got two stations, one's up north and one's down further south, but you share the same song lists, or you share the same themed weekends. You could create the list in one and export it to the other database and import that and use it to schedule. So that's pretty neat. And it's just a matter of going and saying, well, let's match the media here in this case, and then let's export this song list, and then I can send it up to my desktop and export it, and then I can open up the other database and choose that file to import, and I can replace the existing list contents, or I can add to the list contents that I've already got. So you can export those and import those. I think that's a neat feature. So I know I'm breezing through the rest of these sections here, but I'm running out of time a little bit because I get long-winded. And the last thing I want to look at briefly is the chart editor. It's an in-house chart that you can make yourself and maintain inside MusicMaster. And an easy way to get to it is to go to Library and Chart Editor. When you get to Chart Editor, it's going to look a little bit different than this because I've already got mine set up. But when you get here, you're going to see this screen. It's going to pop up automatically for you. I hit the Setup button to get mine to pop up for me. And you want to go in and populate as many of these fields as you can. The one you absolutely need is this week. Okay? Because that's going to run the editor. But if you've got the other fields, go ahead and put those in. But you have to set up the chart editor properties before you run the chart editor. Okay? So dataset library chart editor. The first time you do it, you're going to be told that you have to set up before you can proceed, and then you'll fill in all of these fields. Okay? The mapping editor, basically tells the chart editor where that information is located in the database, and then it, updates those things for you. Okay? When you've configured the screen, then the setting's going to be saved. You won't have to do it again, and you can go in and update the database. So the data should already have information in the this week fields, okay? Since the chart editor brings in all the songs that have numbers in the field designated for rank this week, if the field's empty, the chart editor will be empty. And that's going to be handy if you wanted to start over. You can just erase the contents of the field that you've designated and start again. When you open the chart editor, the songs are going to be loaded based upon the rank this field, or this week field rather. And to update the database, you're going to hit select. So I'm going to hit cancel here and choose edit. I'm going to select edit rather. So I can prepare a chart for the week of 6/29 and hit OK. And so these are the changes. So 2 weeks ago, Mountain Song was 23rd. This week or last week it was 11, and this week it's 11. And then I can choose, I just double check, make sure all this information is what you want, and you'll hit update. And that'll update the list for you. You can calculate spins for the charted songs based upon a time period and add those in too, so that you can make changes before you actually set the list. And then you can save the chart to a list. You can copy it to the clipboard and paste it in Excel if you want to send it to a client or to a record company or whatever. You can print it. You can change the date of the current chart if you'd like to. That's going to reset the date of the current chart. Doesn't update any song data or unlock the chart for editing. It's just going to change the date of the chart. Okay, and so that's the chart editor. As a side note, you can double-click into the note fields. You can go down to the chart note field if you'd like. That's inside your data, and say that I added this record this week, and that information will be added to the chart. MusicMaster will add that automatically too. If you add songs to the list, it'll say that that's an add. If you drop songs, if you delete them, it'll note that as a drop and that kind of thing. But that's the chart editor. We get a lot of questions on people that, with people that use that. So if you have any questions on the chart editor, we didn't have a whole lot of time to get in depth with it like I'd like to. But I can pretty much safe to say that I got through everything I wanted to get through, and with the exception of a couple of other examples and some of these things that I was showing you today. So we've reached an hour quicker than I thought we would, and I appreciate you sitting in and listening to this today. You can get it online in a few days once we get that recorded and sent up. So if you missed a little bit of it, you can come back and visit and listen to it again. But I appreciate your time on in-depth library maintenance. Please give us a call if you have any questions, and I'm going to throw it back to Mark.
Thank you very much, Drew. Great presentation today. We appreciate everybody who tuned in today, and by all means, if you have any specific questions, reach out to MusicMaster. We're here to help. And next week, if you want to pre-register for next week's webinar, it'll be on available help avenues, which will kind of address how we deal with support and how we can help you out and how you can find information about how to do things in MusicMaster. So make sure you sign up for that if you are interested in that. Once again, thank you for all your support, and we'll talk to you again soon.